Welcome to Frankly Speaking Hurricanes Football with your host, Frank Masdeu. Thank you for coming to witness this episode. I'm excited to present to you some information about the upcoming Alabama game. We're going to go over some statistics for Alabama based on their performance last year versus the University of Miami's performance last year statistically. We are currently an 18.5-point underdog against Alabama, and rightly so. They're the number one team in the nation, a former national championship team from 2020. So we are excited to get started. Welcome to Frankly Speaking Canes Football. If you like the video, please hit the like button, subscribe. We really need that. Share our video. We're trying to build the channel. We appreciate that. If you like the content, please come back and visit us. Leave comments down below. I'll be asking you a few questions, what your thoughts are. We're going to begin with Alabama. And we're looking at their overall individual statistics. And obviously there's some things that are just jarring. It's a tremendous team, a juggernaut of a team. This is based on, as of January 11th, 2021, all the individual statistics. Najee Harris is no longer with them. He averaged 5.8 yards per carry, but I want you to notice this. Robinson, right here. Robinson is going to be the lead back, and he averaged 5.3 yards per carry. His long was 21 yards. He's a phenomenal player. They're really not going to miss a beat, in my opinion. Najee was a great player, but Robinson has the ability to fill in his shoes very, very nicely. They've lost these three players, Mac Jones, Jalen Waddle, and Devontae Smith, all gone. So they lost two tremendous receivers and a very good quarterback. Replacing Mac Jones is Bryce Young, and you're going to see that the backup for the number one receiver coming out now will be Mechie, who was their third receiver. And he played an important role as well. And you'll see him over here. You'll see Sladen Bowden. Those are punt returns. And Jalen Waddle. We're going to go down to the passing. Bryce Young had 9 games played. And here's his information. Here we go to receiving. John Mechie was actually the number 2 because Waddle was out with an injury. So that's going to be key. But you look at the production. Mechie had 916 yards. He averaged 16.7 yards per carry, which is a big deal. And we're going to have to be able to shut him down. In my opinion, we're going to be using Stevenson to do that. Stevenson is our best corner, the Georgia transfer. He's a lockdown corner, and he's going to be matched up, in my opinion, with Mechie, their number 1 receiver. Now, if you look at on the defensive side of the ball and interceptions, Malachi Moore is one of their best defensive backs. Patrick Surtain down here was probably their best defensive back. He was lost, but Malachi comes back. And Jordan Battle, their safety, is fantastic. And he's going to be back. So we're going to have to contend with that. That's a really good player. So we're going to have to worry about facing him and game planning around him. So here's some of the individual statistics, but that's just to give you a little bit of a flavor of what we're looking at. They're high on their analytics, as you can see. Game-by-game comparisons. I won't bore you with all of this. Suffice it to say, they had some phenomenal statistics. And we're going to compare them to the University of Miami, which we did fairly well, but this is important. We had talked about improving prior to the arrival of Rhett Lashley and De'Aaron King. We were all about increasing the points per game in today's modern college football game to be able to win. We had to at least average 32 to 34 points and keep our opponents down in the 20 to 24 point. We accomplished some of that with the offense. You'll notice on the scoring points per game, we averaged 34. However, our opponents averaged 27, which left no room for error. Now we did finish 8-3, but that was pretty close. Total points 374 to 297. Rushing, we averaged 99 yards a game compared to 103. That also is not sufficient enough and not consistent enough. Passing, as far as the rushing first downs, we had 99 versus the opponents who had 103 yards, 103 first downs vis-a-vis rushing. So they actually had more rushing first downs. That's horrible on the defensive side of the ball, and that a lot of that could be attributed to the North Carolina game. Passing, we had 126 first downs throwing the ball. We had 124 first downs thrown against us, first downs by throwing the ball. Penalties, we got 27 first downs because of penalties. We gave away 31 first downs because of penalties. So total, it was 252 first downs versus 258. So our opponents got 6 more first downs than we did. On the rushing side, yards gained. We rushed for 2,107 yards. Our opponents rushed for 2,333, so we were outgained. We had 319 for losses. They had 414. Attempts, we had 422. That's amazing. It's exactly the same number of attempts the opponents had against us. We averaged 4.24 yards per run. They averaged 4.55. The average per game was 162 yards of rushing. The opponents averaged 174.45. Again, factor in 600 yards in a single game for North Carolina. So that skews the results substantially. You'll see that makes a big difference. On the passing side, now we'll also look at the rushing attempts. Average per attempt, 4.24. Average per game, we talked about. Touchdowns, we had 18 touchdowns rushing the ball, whereas our opponents had 16. We had a total of 1,788 yards. The opponent had 1,919, so we were outrushed, so our defense was porous. Subtract 600 yards from that, or let's say 400 yards from that, and you'll see that makes a huge difference. Passing, another one that was interesting. We had 381 attempts, 239 completions, and 6 interceptions. Our opponents had, interestingly enough, the same amount of attempts, 381. They had 241 completions, so they had a slightly higher completion rate, and they had 7 interceptions. The average per attempt was 8.01 yards, and our opponent's average was 6.75. Average per game passing yards, 277.27. Our opponent's was 233.91, so we did average more yards per game passing the ball than our opponents. Touchdowns, we had 26 touchdowns passing the ball. Our opponents had 20. Total, we had 3,050 yards. The opponents had 2,573. So on the passing side of the game, we actually improved dramatically. Total offense, with total number of plays. Remember, we wanted to play fast, run 80 to 90 plays a game. Well, total plays, we had 381. Our opponents had 803. Wow. Average per play was 8 yards. They were 5.6. Average per game, 439 yards, 0.8. They were 408. Total yards, 4,838 for the offense. Our opponents was 4,492. Touchdowns, we had 44. The opponents had 36. Average per game, number of yards was 72 yards per game penalties. Our opponent was 68.5. Not really good. Total yards, 86 for 794. That's 86 penalties. Our opponents was 84 for 754. Believe it or not, that's an improvement over 2019. So that was good. That was some improvement. Third down conversions. This was a big deal. We had struggled with that in 2019 and 2018. In 2020, we had 65 for 160, which is 40.63%. Our opponents had 60 for 162, which is 38.27. So we had a slightly higher conversion percentage. Fourth down conversions, we were 13 for 19. Our opponents were 10 for 18. We were 68.42%. They were 55.56%. Our conversion rate on offense was good. On defense was not so good. Fumbles lost. We had 14 fumbles. We lost 6. Our opponents had 16 fumbles. They lost 9. We had 30 sacks, yards lost, 0. That's interesting. Our opponents had 30 sacks. That doesn't seem right. Miscellaneous yards, 69 yards, 0 for our opponents. So that gives you a brief breakdown.
We hope that you liked the video. We hope that you subscribe, and we hope that you continue to watch it. I thank you so much for being here with us on the channel. We're a new channel. We look forward to having you subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you in the future. Have a blessed and wonderful week.